It was a chilly Tuesday morning at Lincoln Middle School, nestled on the outskirts of Springfield, Missouri, where the atmosphere was anything but friendly. The hallways were filled with whispers, cliques, and the occasional sarcastic remark from teachers too exhausted to intervene. For shy students like Emily Carter, who often went unnoticed, navigating this environment felt like a daily struggle for survival. She drifted through the halls like a ghost, dressed in worn jeans and a faded hoodie, her old sneakers telling stories of previous owners. As Emily sat in the cafeteria, the usual din of laughter and chatter surrounded her. Suddenly, Connor the Golden Boy swaggered over with his trademark grin, his friends trailing behind him. "Hey, Emily, you going to audition for the talent show?" he asked, a smirk dancing on his lips. His friends snickered, and Emily felt her stomach drop. The taunts were meant to mock her. Everyone knew she had never performed in front of anyone before. She hesitated, gripping her lunch tray tightly, feeling like a deer caught in headlights. "You sing at church, right?" Connor pressed, his voice dripping with derision. The laughter swelled around her, a wave of humiliation crashing down. She turned to leave, but the jeers followed her. "Bet she won't even show up," someone shouted, while another chimed in, "I'll bring popcorn if she does." The weight of their stares bore down on her as she retreated to her usual corner seat, feeling the sting of their words. But as she sat alone, something unexpected began to stir within her. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was a quiet strength. Emily remembered her grandmother's words. Sometimes life will nudge you right where you need to be, even if it feels like a push. That thought lingered in her mind, igniting a flicker of determination. That evening, Emily sat in her room, thoughts swirling in her head. She barely touched her dinner, her appetite lost beneath a flood of unspoken emotions. As she stared at the peeling paint on her walls, she whispered to herself, "I'm going to do it." It was a mix of pride and defiance, but she was resolute. Little did her classmates know what lay ahead. In her neighborhood, which was tucked behind the old train station, the air often carried the scent of rust and oil. Emily's apartment building looked weathered and tired, but inside it was a haven. Her grandmother, Miss Linda, had raised her with love and resilience since she was a child. The kitchen was filled with the sounds of gospel music and the warm aroma of home-cooked meals. "You don't need much," Miss Linda would say, pouring homemade batter into a pan. "Just heart, and yours has plenty." Emily didn't speak much, but when she sang, it felt like a different person emerged. Every Sunday, she would harmonize with her grandmother while doing chores, her voice raw and genuine, filled with emotion. However, this side of her remained hidden from the outside world. School was a place where being seen often meant being ridiculed, and Emily had learned long ago that silence was safer. After the cafeteria incident, Emily approached her grandmother, who was stirring a pot on the stove. "I think I'm going to try out for the talent show tomorrow," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Miss Linda paused, her wooden spoon suspended in mid-air. "You are?" she asked, her brow raised in surprise. Emily nodded, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. "They dared me." "Was it a real dare or just a foolish one?" Miss Linda inquired. Emily's gaze fell to the floor. "The second one." There was a moment of silence before Miss Linda reached out, gently tilting Emily's chin up. "You do this for yourself, not to prove anything to them?" "I know you can do it. What will you sing?" Emily thought for a moment. Maybe his eye is on the sparrow. Miss Linda's smile widened. "That's your song, sweetheart." They spent that night practicing in the kitchen, the warmth of home surrounding them as Emily's voice filled the air. Miss Linda encouraged her, saying, "Sing like no one is listening, just you and the Lord." And as Emily sang, she felt a sense of freedom wash over her. By the time the school bell rang the next morning, Emily was filled with doubt. She had hardly slept, her stomach twisted in knots. Every step through the hall felt louder, the laughter sharper. Connor's smirk haunted her as he passed by, and the whispers grew louder. Yet she kept moving forward. She had shown up, a feat more significant than anyone expected. As lunchtime approached, Emily heard snippets of conversations around her. "She's really going to sing that old church song," someone said. "I heard Connor dared her, and she's actually going through with it." Sitting alone in her corner, headphones in but no music playing, she tried to drown out the noise. Just before the final bell, her music teacher, Mr. Thomas, approached her table. "Hey, Emily," he said gently, "I saw your name on the audition list." She nodded, unsure how to respond. "I just wanted to say I'm glad you signed up," he continued, offering a supportive smile. "Break a leg." As he walked away, Emily felt a flicker of encouragement. Now, as the day of the audition loomed, she considered backing out more than once. But something inside her pushed her to keep going, to take that leap. She knew this was her chance, not just to sing, but to finally be seen. If you've ever felt invisible or doubted yourself, remember that your voice matters. Don't let fear hold you back from shining. Step into your light and show the world who you truly are. After the exhausting day at school, Emily returned home, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. The laughter of her peers still echoed in her ears, and the weight of their mockery felt heavy on her shoulders. She didn't even pick at her dinner. Her thoughts were consumed by the upcoming talent show audition. Sitting on her bed, she stared at the peeling paint on the walls, feeling trapped in her own insecurities. It was in this moment of solitude that determination began to take root within her. She whispered to herself, "I'm going to do it." The words felt powerful, a blend of pride and defiance. As the evening wore on, Emily reminisced about the moments she cherished with her grandmother, Miss Linda. Living in a modest apartment behind the old train station, their home was filled with warmth and love. Miss Linda had raised Emily with unwavering support, instilling in her the belief that her voice held value. The kitchen often resonated with the sounds of gospel music, where the two of them would sing together while preparing meals. "You don't need much," Miss Linda would say, pouring cornbread batter into a well-worn pan. "Just heart, and yours is full." That night, while washing dishes, Emily shared her plans with her grandmother. "I think I'm going to try out for the talent show tomorrow," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Miss Linda paused, her eyes widening in surprise. "Really? What made you decide to do that?" she asked, her tone encouraging. "They dared me," Emily replied, looking down, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. Miss Linda placed a reassuring hand on Emily's cheek, tilting her face upward. "You do this for you, sweetheart, not for anyone else. What song will you sing?" Emily pondered for a moment before responding, "Maybe His Eye is on the Sparrow." Miss Linda's face lit up with pride. "That's your song, darling. It's perfect for you." They spent the night practicing in the kitchen, the atmosphere filled with love and encouragement. Emily's voice, though initially shaky, grew stronger with each note. Miss Linda encouraged her, saying, "Sing like it's just you and the Lord. Let your heart guide you." As Emily sang, she felt a sense of liberation wash over her. The doubts and fears began to fade, replaced by a growing confidence. She realized that this was more than just an audition. It was a chance to express herself and claim her place in the world. Emily was ready to face whatever came next, determined to show her true self, not just to her classmates, but to herself as well. As the day of the audition approached, Emily felt a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. She hardly slept the night before, her mind racing with thoughts of what could go wrong. Each step she took through the hallways of Lincoln Middle School seemed louder than the last, amplifying her apprehension. Lockers slammed shut like thunderclaps, and laughter echoed painfully in her ears. Connor's smirk from the cafeteria haunted her, and she couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. During homeroom, she could feel the stares of her classmates, their whispers swirling around her like a storm. "Did you hear she's actually going to sing?" one girl said, her voice dripping with disbelief. "This should be good," another chimed in, and Emily could feel the heat rising in her cheeks. She tried to focus on her notebook, gripping her pencil so tightly that it snapped under pressure. At lunchtime, the whispers intensified. Emily sat alone in her usual corner, headphones in, but the music was turned off. She wanted to block out the noise, but all she could hear were the comments about her upcoming performance. "I can't believe she's going through with this," a boy said, laughter following his words. Despite the ridicule, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She reminded herself of the support from her grandmother and the promise she made to herself the night before. Just before the final bell rang, Mr. Thomas, her music teacher, approached her table. He was a kind man with a gentle demeanor, always wearing his signature brown loafers. "Hey, Emily," he said softly, leaning in as if to share a secret. "I saw your name on the audition list. I just wanted to say, I'm really glad you signed up." His words caught her off guard, and for the first time that day she looked up and met his gaze. "Thanks," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Thomas smiled, his eyes filled with encouragement. "Break a leg out there," he said, giving her a reassuring nod before walking away. As the day wore on, Emily battled with her thoughts, contemplating backing out of the audition. The idea of slipping out the side door and disappearing crossed her mind more than once. But deep down, she knew that this moment was bigger than her fears. It was about stepping into her own light and embracing who she truly was. When the final bell rang, she took a deep breath and collected her things. She was terrified, but she was determined. Emily realized that showing up was already a victory, and she was ready to face whatever came next, with her head held high. This was her chance to be seen, to be heard, and to finally let her voice resonate. The day of the audition had finally arrived, and Emily felt a mix of excitement and dread churning in her stomach. As she walked into Lincoln Middle School, the familiar hallways felt different, charged with anticipation. She had barely slept the night before, and now every sound seemed amplified. Lockers slammed shut, laughter erupted, and whispers floated through the air, all sharpening her nerves. During homeroom, Emily struggled to concentrate. Connor, seated a few rows away, shot her a glance, and she could feel the weight of his scrutiny. His usual smirk was absent, replaced by an expression of curiosity mixed with disbelief. "Is she really going to sing?" she heard him mutter to a friend, and her heart sank. She felt small, but she tried to shake off the feeling. Today was not about him, it was about her. When lunchtime arrived, Emily made her way to the cafeteria, her heart racing. She could hear snippets of conversation as she sat at her usual corner table, headphones in, but no music playing. "I can't believe she's going to do it," one girl whispered, and another added, "This is going to be cringe-worthy." The words stung, but Emily was resolute. She had come too far to back down now. The anticipation in the air was palpable as students gathered around the auditorium doors. The energy felt more like that of a school dance or a fight than a talent show. Emily approached the stage, her heart pounding in her chest. She could see a small crowd inside, a mix of friends, teachers, and curious onlookers, all waiting to see what would happen next. When it was finally her turn, the student assistant called her name. "Next up, Emily Carter." A few chuckles rippled through the audience, but she took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The spotlight hit her like a wave of warmth, and for a moment she felt exposed, but also strangely empowered. Gripping the microphone, she scanned the audience, but her nerves kicked in, and she felt overwhelmed. The faces blurred into shadows, and she closed her eyes, focusing on the silence that enveloped her. She needed just one moment of clarity, one deep breath to ground herself. As she inhaled, memories flooded back, her grandmother's gentle encouragement, the sound of their voices harmonizing in the kitchen, the comfort of home. With that thought, she let the silence stretch, allowing the tension in her body to dissolve. Finally, she began to sing. "I sing because I'm happy." Her voice emerged softly, but with a clarity that surprised even her. The room fell silent, the audience captivated. As she continued, she poured her heart into every note, and with each line, she felt the weight of her fears lift. This was her moment. She was finally ready to be seen and heard. As Emily stepped off the stage, a wave of emotions washed over her. She didn't wait to gauge the reaction from the audience. Instead, she slipped out the side door, her heart racing. The exhilarating rush of performing mingled with a sense of vulnerability. Outside, the cool air hit her face, and for the first time in a long while she felt a smile creeping onto her lips, not because she sought approval, but because she had faced her fears head on. When Emily arrived home that evening, the familiar scent of her grandmother's cooking enveloped her. Miss Linda was in the kitchen, humming softly to herself. As Emily entered, her grandmother turned, a knowing smile spreading across her face.
"Well, how did it go?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Emily dropped her backpack on the floor, her expression giving away everything she felt. "They listened," she said simply, a mix of relief and pride swelling within her. Miss Linda's smile widened as she walked over, wrapping her arms around Emily in a warm embrace. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," she whispered. "You did good." The next day at school felt noticeably different. As Emily walked through the hallways, she sensed the shift in how her classmates regarded her.
They looked at her with a new sense of recognition, not with ridicule or mockery, but with acknowledgement. It wasn't a grand transformation, no one clapped or cheered, but there was a subtle shift that filled her with hope. In history class, her teacher smiled at her and said, "I heard about your performance yesterday. It must have been something special." Even Connor, who had once made her the target of his jokes, avoided making eye contact. Instead of taunting her, he seemed confused, perhaps even impressed. During lunch, Emily noticed that people began to move over to make space for her at the table. A seventh grader she had never spoken to before gave her a thumbs up as she passed by. It was small gestures like these that made her feel seen for the first time. She was no longer the invisible girl. She had carved out a space for herself in the school. Emily's confidence slowly blossomed. Mr. Thomas approached her again one afternoon, his expression serious yet encouraging. "I'd like you to be part of the district vocal showcase," he said.
"Just one song. It's not a competition, but a chance to share your voice with others." Emily hesitated, her heart racing at the thought of performing again. "I don't know," she replied, uncertainty creeping in. Mr. Thomas smiled gently. "What you did in the auditorium was brave, Emily. You made people feel something real. You have a gift." His words lingered in her mind as she left the classroom, igniting a spark of possibility. She had begun to understand that her voice mattered, not just to her, but to others who needed to hear it.
For the first time, she was beginning to see her worth, and it felt exhilarating. As the weeks passed, Emily's life began to unfold in ways she had never imagined. While she wasn't suddenly the most popular girl in school, the transformation in how her peers treated her was undeniable. There was a subtle shift in the air. She felt more present, more visible. In English class, when she raised her hand to answer questions, her classmates actually listened. No one snickered or rolled their eyes anymore. Instead, they respected her contributions. At lunch, Emily found herself sharing a table with a few classmates who had previously overlooked her. They would chat casually, discussing everything from schoolwork to music. It wasn't as if they had become best friends overnight, but the camaraderie was a welcome change. Even Connor, who had once made her the target of his jokes, seemed to regard her differently. He no longer teased. Instead, he would glance her way occasionally, perhaps wrestling with his own confusion about the shift in their dynamics. Back at home, Miss Linda couldn't help but brag about Emily's recent performance to everyone at church. "You should have seen her," she would tell friends, her voice filled with pride. "She sang for the whole school and they were all quiet like it was Sunday morning." Emily would blush at her grandmother's enthusiasm, feeling a mix of embarrassment and warmth. It felt good to be recognized for something positive, something beyond her old labels of being the quiet girl with the hand-me-down clothes. One Friday afternoon, Mr. Thomas approached her once more. "There's a district vocal showcase coming up," he said with a hopeful smile. "I'd love for you to perform just one song. It's a chance to share your voice with a larger audience." Emily's heart raced. The thought of performing again was both thrilling and terrifying. "Can I think about it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," he replied, nodding. "But remember, what you did at the talent show wasn't just brave, it was art. You made people feel. That's something special." That night, as she sat on her bed with her old MP3 player, Emily reflected on everything that had happened. The streetlights outside flickered, and the sounds of the city buzzed in the background. She thought about her grandmother's words and the impact her voice could have on others. "Maybe I do want to do it," she whispered to herself. The realization dawned on her. This wasn't just about singing anymore. It was about using her voice to inspire others who felt unheard. Emily felt a newfound determination building within her. She was ready to embrace this opportunity, not just for herself, but for anyone who had ever felt invisible. It was time to share her story and let her voice resonate beyond the confines of her old fears. The day of the district vocal showcase arrived, and Emily stood nervously behind the curtain of the small stage at the Springfield Civic Center. Though the auditorium wasn't packed, enough faces filled the seats to make her palms sweat and her heart race. Parents, students from neighboring schools, and community members awaited the next performer, their murmurs barely audible over the low hum of excitement in the air. She could see her grandmother, Miss Linda, sitting proudly in the third row, her smile radiating warmth and encouragement. Emily took a deep breath, recalling the journey that had brought her to this moment. Just a year ago, she was the girl who blended into the background, afraid to speak up or be noticed. Now she had the opportunity to share her voice, not just as a performer, but as someone who had discovered her worth. Mr. Thomas stood off to the side of the stage, arms crossed, giving her an encouraging nod. As her name was called, Emily stepped forward into the spotlight, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. She could feel the energy of the audience, a mix of curiosity and support. This time, she was more than just a girl with a dare. She was a young woman ready to tell her story. She gripped the microphone tightly, taking another deep breath to steady her nerves. With her eyes closed, Emily began singing the song she had chosen for this moment, "His Eye is on the Sparrow." The first note flowed from her lips, soft yet clear, and she felt an immediate shift in the atmosphere. The audience was captivated, the earlier whispers fading into silence. Each line she sang resonated with her personal struggles and triumphs, and she poured her heart into every word. "I sing because I'm happy," she began, her voice trembling slightly. But as she continued, the tremor transformed into strength, conviction surging through her. She sang not for applause, but to share the truth of who she was. With each verse, she felt a wave of empowerment wash over her, her fears dissipating into the music. By the time she reached the chorus, the energy in the room had shifted dramatically. The audience was no longer just spectators, they were witnesses to something profound. Emily opened her eyes, scanning the crowd, she saw faces reflecting understanding and appreciation, and for the first time, she felt truly connected to them. With the final note, she stood tall, her heart racing not from fear but from exhilaration. The applause that followed was gentle at first, then built into a wave of appreciation. As she stepped back from the microphone, she didn't wait for the next act. She walked off stage, a smile breaking across her face. Outside in the fresh air, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had done it not just for herself, but for every person who had ever felt invisible. As she left the auditorium, she knew that her voice had found its place, and she was ready for whatever came next. Miss Linda's proud smile as she rolled down the window of her car was all the affirmation she needed. Emily was no longer just a quiet girl. She was a voice, a story, and she was ready to embrace her future.